Hello everyone, my name is TreeBurgers and welcome back to the Crossout PR test server. In today's video, we will be testing out the first weapon that you will be getting with the new Syndicate Battlepass. This is the Tempura, and this is a melee weapon, but unlike melee weapons that we have seen before. The Tempura is unique in its functionality because it is a charged melee weapon, meaning that you have to charge this weapon up, and when you do so, you'll be able to fire it, and it has reload before you can fire it again. The Tempura deals fire damage but does not heat parts. That's very important to say. So this is thermal damage when you shoot it, and if I could then hit the cabin, that would also be great. But this is thermal damage when you shoot it, but it does not heat. So it has all of the probabilities of fire damage and will be buffed by anything that buffs fire damage. But again, it will not heat the target as we shoot. As you can see, it also has a base damage of 199. And this damage can be spread out over multiple parts in case you hit them. There are a few things that we want to establish with this weapon. And the first thing is the basic functionality of the weapon before we get into what it can buff and maybe not buff this weapon. So first of all, since we have a beam here of fire, we want to see just how wide the extra projectile is, and to do that we've set up the different parts here so we can see just how many parts we can hit at once. Now I'm going to try to see if I can align this as well as possible. I think this is as good as we're going to get it, so let's see how many of these parts we'll be removing now that we charge the weapon. Great, so we removed those two parts. If we just do that to this row over here just to confirm that the damage area is indeed 2 blocks. Yes, it is. Now there's another thing that we want to test with this, and that is if this has any penetration. We first want to look at how far into a build this shoots. So the weapon module itself is 4 blocks long, and if we now fire it, then we can see that the flame that it shoots is about as long as the weapon itself, so about 4 blocks of penetration it seems like. It's very important here that we actually hit through the train plow and not into the Apollo or the Ampere there, which I think we will. Actually, we're a bit too high, so we might need to slap on some sort of legs onto this. So there we are. This seems like the closest we are gonna get to it, and the flame should be far enough to reach into the Ampere. So let's see if this weapon has any sort of penetration. So first test, looks like it does have penetration, but I'm just going to try it from a bit further away just to double check that we didn't shoot through the train plow by accident or something like that, since we were all the way parked into it. So if we shoot from here, we still pop the Ampere. So this definitely penetrates through layers, and I think we can only assume that it penetrates through the full length of the weapon where it has the potential to deal damage. Now the next thing we would like to know is whether the weapon deals bonus damage to frames or anything like that, or if we can actually cut through frames. So if we park right here and we try to fire, then we see that we deal 19 damage. So we do not deal any bonus damage to frames. Now it's very important to note here that, just like we established before, if we can hit things behind us, as you can see, when we go all the way into here, we all of a sudden deal 39, and that is actually because we hit the frame behind it as well, so we damage multiple parts. So one bonus thing about this is that it will have penetration. If people have layers of frames, then you'll be able to hit multiple frames at once because it penetrates into builds. The next question that I've seen is whether the Tempura will be buffed by the Blight or not, because the Blight cabin buffs thermal damage or fire damage. So again, base damage 199. Then we're just going to drive in a circle here in order to charge our Blight for the rest of the... There we go. And we will be able to fire this one with the Blight perk enabled. So we activate the Blight and then we shoot. And as we can quite clearly see right there, 279 damage. So this weapon is buffed by the Blight. Now if we zoom in here all the way, we should actually be able to activate the weapon and then activate the Blight halfway through and see if the Blight affects the color of the flame on this weapon. It does indeed. If you could just catch that, I'll run that in slow motion, but you will actually get a green flame on this weapon if you have the Blight activated. Since this weapon is at a fixed angle, it's worth also testing if the weapon will be boosted by the icebox. Again, 199 damage is the base damage of this weapon, and with the icebox we do not get any buff. Tested whether you can reset the cooldown with the favorite cabin. The answer is very much no. And with the echo cabin, that will allow us to increase the reloading time of the weapon. As far as modules go, we have the Tormentor that boosts melee weapons, so let's try that one out. Which, interestingly enough, does not boost the Tempura. Now this is due to the perk of the Tormentor, or rather the functionality. It's melee weapons that will start to spin like crazy and hurt everyone. Now, while this is a melee weapon, I think it's simply just a phrasing because we haven't had a melee weapon like this before. So basically now this should refer to chainsaws and likewise, and this might actually be the case on the live server. We don't know that yet, but I'm 99% sure that it is just a case of bad wording rather than this should be affected by a Tormentor. And finally, the weapon will not be affected by either shivers or by seals. So these will have no effect since this is a reload based weapon. Lastly, we also have the co-driver Bulldog, who can potentially buff melee weapons. So we're gonna try it again with Bulldog enabled, and we're gonna shoot this test build right here. And once again, we get 199. If we look at Bulldog, it is melee weapons and chainsaws that has a bonus damage, and there we go. So in my opinion, this definitely should boost this weapon since it is also a melee weapon. It is interesting though to try and see if Misty will buff it, because Misty will buff fire damage by 5%. So here we go again, this time with Misty enabled. And with that, we actually don't get any damage either, even though the Blight actually boosts the weapon. Now, all in all, there are some strange things about this, and if you're thinking right now, well, some of this don't really make much sense, then I fully agree with you. So don't stress it too much. We're gonna have to see what this is like on the live service tomorrow, but hopefully there should be either an elaboration to why this is buffed by the Blight, if Misty does not buff it, and vice versa, if Misty is not supposed to buff it, why does Bulldog not buff it, since it is a melee weapon? But that concludes the first test for the first weapon that will be available with the Syndicate Battle Pass. I'll be pushing out as many of these videos as possible before the release tomorrow, so I'm hoping that I will get to push out all of them so you guys will have a full overview. Otherwise, they will release over the next couple of days. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button down below. Until next time, stay safe. Bye bye.